Alright guys, so if you've been watching my videos, you know I've been getting into the Pac-Man frogs, and I actually bought 2 more today, which brings me up to 5 frogs, which is pretty incredible. And I'm kind of headed down the path of trying to breed Pac-Mans, which I think would be pretty cool, and maybe get billions and millions of baby frogs and sell them at the shows. I think that'd be kind of cool. Kind of go through the whole process step by step, and I can kind of bring you guys through the whole process of breeding them and growing them up and maybe selling them at the shows, and then we'll see. It'll be really interesting on some of the genetics to see if some of the albino strains are compatible. So originally I had some 2 albino Pac-Man frogs, and today I bought strawberry Pac-Man frogs, which are a different type of albino, and I'm not sure if they're compatible. I'm having a really hard time trying to find any information on the genetics and the compatibility of different strains of albinos in the Pac-Man frogs. So it'll be really interesting once we start breeding to see what kind of genetics we can end up with, and what's compatible with what. And maybe I'll start a study online of the genetics of the Pac-Man frogs, because I haven't really seen anything out there today. So let me kind of go through my Pac-Mans one by one, and I'll show you each individual frog. Okay, so I have 4 juvenile frogs over here, and I upgraded their tubs to these semi-transparent instead of the gray tubs, and it gives them a little bit more light. And I think it still gives them the security that they need, but it gives them a little more light to where, like, if I threw in some crickets, they could easily find them. And this guy he's pretty small. He's one of the ones you've seen before. He's a little, he's just a regular albino Pac-Man. He's not the strawberry. Now let's see if I can get him out. And this guy is growing like a rocket. let me put him in the water to clean him off a little bit. He's a really beautiful looking frog. And I love the albinos. They have a lot of yellow and some bright reds mixed in. They're a really neat looking frog. So here's my other albino Pac-Man frog, and this one's a little bit bigger. And they both have been eating really good, putting on some weight. I've been breeding the mealworms. The mealworms, remember if you watched the previous video, my mealworms were really small, and they're getting to the size where I can feed them really well. They haven't turned into beetles yet, but this one's a really good looking frog. This guy is super fat. Can't believe how fat he is. Let me put him in the water to clean him off a little bit. Look at how fat that thing is. He's really chunky. I could probably cut back on the food on this guy. He's just one of my other straight albinos. So I want to keep this regular albino out in this water here, and I want to show you side by side a comparison with my new strawberry albino Pac-Mans. And these guys are super, super small. I'm thinking they might not even be, they're probably only about a month old, I would think. They are really small Pac-Mans. And let me see if I can get them over here and kind of show you side by side. And hopefully the big one doesn't eat the little one. You're never really supposed to keep them together for very long. They can eat each other. But you can definitely tell there's a difference between the albino and the strawberry albino. And I'm not sure if they're compatible. So if you bred these together, I don't know if you get some kind of maybe 50-50, or if you get some kind of if you get all greens. And then some of them they'd both be het for both albinos, or if they're compatible and you get some kind of like maybe a mix between the two. So here's my last strawberry Pac-Man. This is the last of my smaller ones, and he's basically exactly the same as the other strawberry albino. Really small. They grow incredibly fast. It's amazing how fast these can grow. And within no time, these will be ready to breed. I'd say probably within a year and a half, these will be big enough to breed. So that's it for my smaller Pac-Mans. Now I can show you, I have one more Pac-Man frog, and this one's a pretty big one. It's a female, and it's a full-size, mature green Pac-Man, just a straight green. And she's probably hanging out way in the back. And the thing about this is this girl likes to really jump, so I don't really want to want her hitting the floor. Ooh. Let's see if I can get her out. She is a really big Pac-Man. Let's see if I can put her in the water and clean her off a little bit. Yeah, she's a good-looking frog, though. Just a straight green. So it'll be interesting. I would think that if you bred an albino with just a straight green Pac-Man, that you would get all greens. That would be het for albino. I'm thinking, you know, if you breed them kind of like a snake, I'm thinking it would be kind of the same genetics, but I'm not 100% sure. You know, this one possibly could be het for either albino, and you know, you wouldn't know it just buying it from the pet store. So it's kind of a guess. And on this one, the pet store didn't really have it that long, so I don't know if they really knew the genetics behind this particular frog. Okay, so I'm actually in the market for a couple more Pac-Mans. I'm thinking maybe some high red ornate Pac-Mans, and it's kind of like the green, except it has a lot of bright reds kind of sprinkled through it. And I'm not sure if I want to expand much more past that. I guess it depends on what else I can find. And there's also, if you're looking around for Pac-Man frogs, there's also what they call a fantasy frog. So if you're thinking about getting into the Pac-Mans and you're thinking of breeding them, whatever you do, be careful of the fantasy frog, because it's a cross between a Pac-Man and another type of frog, and all the fantasy frogs are actually sterile hybrids, and you can't breed them. So for these frogs, I've been basically feeding the smaller one mealworms, and I kind of showed you my mealworm setup earlier, and I thought I'd give you a quick update. So I put mealworms in, and for these snake tubs, these are tubs basically for hatchling snakes. And this tub I actually had my original colony of mealworms in it, and you can see some of them, they're kind of crawling to the top. And they kind of almost look like they're dead. So if you can look at this one kind of right here in the corner, this one right here, it kind of looks like it's dead, but it's actually pupating, and some of these will turn into beetles. And once they turn into beetles, then that's kind of what I'm hoping for, is they turn into beetles, because then they'll lay lots and lots of eggs, which will mean a lot more mealworms. And right now I'm kind of going through quite a few mealworms. If you remember last time, I bought a whole bunch of mealworms, but they were really, really tiny. And it's been a few weeks, and they're getting to the point where they're starting to get some size on them. But those ones that I bought in the last video, they're not big enough yet to start pupating. So I definitely want to get the beetles so I can get the mealworms really going, so I can feed a lot of these Pac-Mans without actually having to buy the mealworms. Alright, so as I get more Pac-Mans, I'll definitely give you guys an update and show you what's coming in the door and how my collection is growing. And then once we get the Pac-Mans to a certain size, we'll definitely be pairing them up in a rain chamber. And I don't know if you guys have kind of looked on YouTube for rain chambers for Pac-Man frogs, but it's basically just like the ceiling light grating and the little white squares that's suspended in the water, and the Pac-Mans basically they sit on top of that light grating, and they lay eggs, and all the eggs fall through the grating onto the bottom of the aquarium, and they stay suspended above all the eggs. And they'll lay, like one female can lay like up to 1,000 eggs, so they're very prolific. And I'm thinking I may be in the Pac-Man business pretty deep if I start getting, you know, 5 or 6 females, and we get 5 or 6,000 baby Pac-Mans. It might be a challenge to keep them all growing and going and without eating each other, and all separated and fed. So you know, I'm thinking, you know, another place that I've actually seen little tadpoles for sale. I actually haven't seen any Pac-Man tadpoles for sale, but it's on eBay. You can actually go on eBay, and they sell frog tadpoles. I've seen a lot of bullfrog tadpoles, and they'll sell them. You know, you can buy 12 or 24 or 100 or 1,000 of them, and that may be a place to unload a lot of these Pac-Mans before I have to actually, you know, get to the point where I have to separate them all and feed them all individually. It may be good to unload them in bulk on eBay. So the Denver Reptilian Nation's coming up. I think it's the end of February. I think it's the 23rd. I'll have to double check my dates on that, but in early 2019, end of February, the Reptilian Nation's coming to Denver. And I'm going to have some spots in my snake rack where I won't have enough baby ball pythons, so I'll definitely be making an order online. I've seen where you can get Pac-Man frogs online in bulk, and I can get a whole variety of different colors, and I'm thinking of bringing them to the show, and maybe I'll hold some of those back, some of the really interesting ones, as breeders, and kind of boost my operation here and sell the extras at the shows. So if you're going to Reptilian Nation, I'll have a bunch of snakes, and I may have part of my display full of frogs as well. So that's pretty much it for the update. Thanks for watching, and I will see you next time.